Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Pruned podcast. I am your hostess with the mostest, Rebel Ray. Let's go. I got a dynamic woman in the building with me today. I am so excited to have Rhodesia Ransom. Come on, y'all. Heart it up. Heart it up. Let's go. Rhodesia has decided to run for our district. What district is it?
13.
13 for the state
assembly seat.
Okay, it's state assembly, and I wanted to make sure we had that right. But before we get into all of that, here on the Pruned podcast, we're bringing you real life stories of overcoming adversity, stories of triumph, stories of growth, right? And I was just talking to Rhodesia before we went online here about what stories really shaped you. We really want to get to know you. We're taking our time to really get to know all of our candidates this year. Personally, I just want you to know that Rebel Ray herself, R.C. Thompson, as a leader here in Stockton, I am endorsing you, my sister.
Thank you.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. And the reason why is, we've been working in nonprofit sector. I know me for over 20 years. Mm-hmm. How long have you been working?
20 years.
Over 20
plus,
years.
Yeah.
And through your nonprofit, you have touched so many people's lives, but you are also been a living testament. And I'm going to say, I'm the bad one out of the bunch. I'm the naughty one. I will tell it like it is. But when I say you are the most upstanding leader, woman, sophisticated, classy, and I look up to you. You don't, like you said, you were just talking about how black don't crack. Yeah. Your age, you don't look like your age, but has been able to carry herself with the utmost dignity in leadership. And I appreciate that, Rhodesia. I want to tell everybody in front of everybody, I appreciate you. Being an example of a leader that leads with grassroots beliefs, but also understands how to connect with higher agency. Mm-hmm. And so now when you told me you were running, I said, that's what I'm talking about. That's the leadership we need.
Thank you. I appreciate you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so we're going to go into a little bit about who you are, because, we want to be very diligent on just shaping and supporting whatever narrative you want to show up. A lot of times when you're in this race, people got things to say, don't they?
Boy, do they. Yes, they do.
So, when you come on, anytime I reach out, or my management, shout out to Mayfair Management, whoop, whoop. Anytime Mayfair Management or my management team reaches out to you, we really are looking for the stories that connect back with our people, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us about growing up as Rhodesia.
Well, thank you. So first of all, thank you for that endorsement, and thank you for that introduction. What's really funny is when you talk about me and class, and it's just, everything you think and everything you experience, you have to really be mindful of the audience and who you're working with and who you are internally as a person. Mm-hmm. So there's all kinds of role models, right? We have good role models and we have bad role models. And I want to say that I've had both growing up. Okay. And so the role model that you see, because I've had good and bad, the one you get to see is the one I talk about, which is my grandmother, who was a missionary. And so I grew up just like a lot of other folks, very in a humble community. My mom ran a business. She had her own small business, but I spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who was a missionary, who was a woman of God, who had lots of forgiveness and was very classy and very graceful. In fact, both of my grandmothers were very classy. And so it's not that I have not been through things. It's that I've learned as a Black woman that sometimes the world expects you to behave in a certain way, and they want you to respond in a certain way. And although things may not be the way they're supposed to be, I don't have the liberty to behave in certain ways. And so I got to keep it classy. And I have to, always have to be smarter and work harder.
Listen.
And that's just how it is.
Wow.
So, that's part of the preparation.
I'm so glad that you brought that. That's part of the preparation. And, going into my 40s, I was like, I'm gonna have to put all of that Jezebel energy up because
Yeah.
I was rebelling out. Right? I was like, I don't care
Yeah.
because people will crucify you. They'll
Mhm.
judge you.
Yeah.
For they don't even know your story.
There you go.
They'll walk into your story at midlife and say, I see you doing this, I see you doing this. And people have expectations
Mhm.
for you. But I'm glad that you even brought that up. I know in this political arena, people don't want to look at race anymore. It does shape us. Our
Mhm.
experiences of how we're raised, the culture of how we raised shaped us. And I grew
Mhm.
up in the church too. So we're from the Stallworth
Okay.
background.
Okay.
And so we served underneath them for 30 years. And a lot of them are like family,
Mhm.
extended family. And so I grew up very strict Pentecost. And
Oh,
you know,
likewise, I did as well. I grew up
and
Kojic.
I always talk about that. But I also learned that going to college and learning different people, connecting with different people,
Mhm.
I had to learn how to accept people for where they were at.
Yes.
I had to also learn how to apply the Bible because a lot of times that black and white thinking
Yeah.
on how to apply the Bible comes
Yeah.
from a persecutor mindset.
Yeah.
And it's really supposed to come from a love mindset
Mhm.
first.
Mhm.
That, you know, they say love and love conquers all.
Yeah.
Christ loved the church, right? But I always often wonder if I didn't have that foundation, how far of a rebel I would have
How
been. I
far
think
would
I
you
would have been
go?
super
Yeah.
out there. So I'm
I-
very grateful for that foundation as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I love what you just said about, you know, you have to put that Jezebel, you know, that character away. Listen, we can be authentic. It's not that you don't have to. It's like I tell people, like, I love Jesus and I cuss. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to choose one. And there's always people trying to make you choose. But fortunately, to me, that's a good way. It's a good outlet for me. And I can still be classy and be who I'm supposed to be.
Come on.
But it doesn't mean that you're inauthentic when you say, I can do better, right?
Or you let people run over you in the name of whatever they think and they standing for.
Yeah.
And I think that's where our boundaries are. Let's go back to now you coming up through the ranks. Tell me where you went to college.
So I grew up in San Francisco. My grandmother was a missionary, so that's where I learned how to be involved and do all those things. I did everything in San Francisco. I went to college. I got my bachelor's in political science. Did not plan to be in politics.
Interesting.
People think that that's why I got a bachelor's in political science.
Okay.
I got a bachelor's in political science because I was interested in law, and that was kind of one of the pathways. Then when I decided I did not want to go into law, it was just I had the political knowledge, which was very helpful in kind of navigating public service, because what folks don't understand is a lot of the needs that we have here publicly, the way either nonprofits are run, the way things are funded, that's all politics and government.
It's all government and policy.
It's all related. So when you want to be a public servant, you have to understand how government works. You have to understand who the people are, where you can get the resources you need in order for things to happen. So I got my bachelor's at San Francisco State. I got my master's at Golden Gate, which is also in San Francisco.
Okay.
And so that's where I grew up. That's where my roots were from originally.
Nice.
And so now, you know,
it was a mixture of all types of people.
Oh, absolutely.
In San Francisco.
100%.
You had immigrants. You had you had a historical black around Ocean Street. We don't see that too much now. There's been a lot of gentrification that goes on around in San Francisco. We had a lot of the known projects at the time that they call them Hunters Point.
Well, yeah. Right? So where I grew up, it was called Bayview Hunters Point. It's now called Bayview because you know, originally it was a place there used to be, well, just keep in mind, like, that's where, like, the people came home from the war, the naval, there was all kinds of contamination there. Like, most people there were, like, retired military and post office workers.
That's right.
You know, community workers and
things
those
like barracks were constructed like that, like military barracks.
Right, exactly. And so then they, you know, redesigned.
Yes, they did.
And told folks that they would be able to come back. And then it's now called Bayview. It's very expensive.
Right.
And I laugh when I hear people say they're from Bayview. And I'm like, okay.
You talking about Hunters Point?
Yeah. So, I mean, because, you know, you can go and literally see the Bay Bridge on one side and the Golden Gate Bridge from another. It's very beautiful. And there were lots of churches. You know, I grew up in private school for most of my life. So people don't understand me because they don't understand how I can navigate all different arenas. Well,
That's
I went
right.
to church, I went to private school.
Right.
I also grew up with people who you wouldn't expect me to be with. So when I
Right.
say they were good role models and bad role models, like,
Mm.
you get to see, I want to be that. I like how that looks, or I want to, or I don't want to do that. Right. And
So
so,
was you one of them church kids that was sneaking rap music into they mamas? My first tape. Do
okay,
you know what my first tape was?
probably Salt and Pepper or
Oh
something.
no,
Well, no, I'm older than you,
no.
so
It was horrible. And I tell people all the time, it was E40 Slurricane.
Oh, so
I had
E40 was not even out when rap music. So my first rap tape was Eric B and Rakim.
Oh wow!
It was Eric B and Rakim, and then Salt and Pepper. So Eric B and Rakim was very clean, like that was okay.
Right.
Then there was Salt and Pepper, and
Right.
and then
I love that.
So that's
and don't even look like you from that era.
Yeah.
You look like you from the era of the 80s.
No,
the 80 babies.
I was born in the 70s.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
so
amazing.
yeah, so I definitely wasn't supposed to have that music, but it really wasn't bad. Now what we got now is different.
Okay, listen.
So yes, I definitely did that. I don't know. I don't want to say I was like a goody goody. I was the type of person, and I still am the type of person. If you tell me the fire is hot, I don't need to touch it. Okay. I believe you. You got burned. I don't want to touch it. You
had great emotional intellect, and a lot of times kids don't have that growing up. Yeah. I didn't have that. I was the hard-headed kids. I need to figure it out on my own.
Lots of people do that.
Okay. And I bumped my head, but it brought a lot of experience. And I think too, that's why I have these intense dialogues. I have these connections with people. I'm not afraid to talk about what we need to talk about. Yeah. And in this current climate, you're coming up through the ranks, you graduated. Now, how did you get directly into politics? So you first started your nonprofit, right?
Yes.
And so what did that cater to? What part of our population or community did that cater to?
So how I got involved, and I wanted to say, because when you say my nonprofit, I like to tell people nonprofits don't belong to us.
Ashe.
They belong to the community.
Ashe.
And so I founded the nonprofit 20 years ago to deal with what we were seeing, which was kids not being able to appropriately matriculate into public schools, especially kids coming from the Bay Area into Tracy. So my family and I moved here, and our kids were very young. So we have 3 kids, they're all adults now. And what we were seeing, dealing with the superintendent of schools as a business person, they were constantly saying, can you come help us? And they wanted us to mediate situations with Black students, with African-American students who were being suspended, expelled at a high rate. And so we had a really good relationship with the superintendent. And at one point we were volunteering a lot of time, right? Okay. And I just told the superintendent, like, you need professional help. Yes. You need professional help, because you can't just keep calling people off of their jobs to come in and be mediators. And there was a high need to really address the suspension and expulsion rate, and really help the educators understand the culture that was coming here. So the population of the city I live in, which is the city of Tracy, has doubled since I lived here, right? Wow. And so you have a lot of folks who came here like we did because housing was affordable. Yes. But we also chose a really great community. So when people, kind of look at us and go, well, you didn't grow up here. Well, half of this county didn't grow up here.
Let's talk about that, right? Because we're going to get back to that nonprofit.
Okay.
We're going to get back to the nonprofit.
Okay, we can do that.
Because I feel like there's this sense of divisiveness when that happens. Absolutely. People have to grow. They have to find other space. I know there's a scarcity mindset right now that is out there in the community sometime. When it comes to resources, when it comes to housing, when it comes to even Bay Area transplants. I do understand, I always use a trauma lens, that yes, the Bay Area has a lot more exposure to many different things in big city life that you're not going to necessarily get in the pasture life, in the county, in the country life we had down here in a smaller city. Right. And so, how do you address that even now, like in the political arena, when people want to say, is she really a part of us? Does she really understand what we go through here in our district, in our valley, right? I feel like so much divisiveness in that I feel like we all cousins and we all family. Yeah. So you have family that are as far away sometimes. Yes. And sometimes family has to come back into the fold and get the resources. But if you got a family member that's willing to give, see, you were giving everywhere. Right. You were stationed, or you set up shop, or you connected with the people.
that's exactly right. Right. Being referred to as a Bay Area transplant, I think is funny. You know, I didn't understand when people were calling, you know, you're a bat. I'm like, what is a bat? Bay Area transplant. I will take that. But what I want to first start with is like people who came here chose this community.
Okay.
They chose this community. There's other communities that they could have chosen to go to. And so you respect the family value. You respect the community culture. Some folks are bragging about like they've been here for generations. Well, you had to be here. This is where your family brought you.
Right.
I chose this community and I choose to be a part of every community that I am going to be, where I'm going to be. I'm not just going to be there and watch issues happen. And sometimes the solutions come from people who have experienced what communities like this have not experienced, right? So I've seen homelessness. So I was one of the first folks to recognize, I'm like, wait, I'm seeing somebody cross the street in Tracy with a cart. We're going the wrong direction. Something's going on here, right? Because I saw carts where I grew up and I'm like, no, we cannot, we got to get a handle on this, right? And so folks are coming here for housing affordability, but they also want to be part of the community. Their kids are going to school with the other kids. And I've been fighting against, you know, NIMBYism, not in my backyard, and all of these different things that people bring. But
that practice is hidden bigotry.
Is it not? Is it hidden really? Is it really hidden?
Listen,
I don't know how
you know,
hidden
and
it is.
a lot of y'all don't know what NIMBYism is, but it's the practice of being a Karen. I hate to say that language, but that's the only language that people know. And I'm not targeting any specific person unless you're conducting yourself in that way. And it's individuals who are saying, I don't want this in my backyard. These are people who don't want affordable housing next to their homes.
Even apartments. I mean, I've dealt with that. So, you know, when you ask about whether it's divisive. So we have, and we're continuing to see this right now. What's really holding this community back is kind of the old versus the new. People who just really want to keep really good people out of being involved in our community. And folks are not trying to be involved in a negative way. They really want to get involved and do something, but people have been intimidated. I don't intimidate well. I'm a glutton for punishment. I don't know where I come from. We don't get intimidated, but lots of people have been intimidated from participating in the political process because, you know, of how they've seen people treat some of us, right? You know, but that right there does not bother me at all. And
so when did you stop being a bat? You've been here for 20 years.
Over 20 years. I don't.
So when do you stop
I'm not
being
a
bat?
My kids are raised in Tracy. My kids don't know. They've never been in any other community, and where, you know. So at the end of the day, this is where my family is. This is where we're from, and this is where we have participated. And so we've gotten involved in the community. I started off just serving in, you know, I was on nonprofit boards. I was on the Performing Arts Foundation, and where I really saw that maybe I should get more involved. And of course, you don't raise your own hand and say, pick me. Someone actually, there's a thing I'm on the board for Emerge California. It's an organization that recruits and trains women to run for office. And what we've learned through data is that most women have to be asked, especially women of color, more than one time, right? I never intended to run for office. I just wanted to be engaged in the community. I wanted to be able to, my childhood prayer was like, Lord, let me make a difference, right? Like when you didn't even know what you wanted to be when you grow up. I think that's I just want to do something that makes a difference, right? And so I served on 2 civil grand juries, and that was the most eye-opening experience ever in this county. Just really seeing, you know, there was so much nepotism, there was so much malfeasance in government. I mean, people just using people who grew up here or people who were in service feeling like they owned things that the taxpayers were paying for. And it really left a bad taste.
You're speaking truth
to
power right now. It's scary to hear because, and I don't want to alarm our viewers or our listeners, we don't hear this.
No.
We hear a whole nother narrative. You know, this is not any type of cancellation that's happening. We're speaking truth to power. When you have those type of power dynamics, do we truly have social justice?
You have to continue. Every generation has their fight, right? It's something that you never let your guard down for. If you really care about justice is something that you're constantly pursuing, because if something is against one of us, it's really against all of us. And so when people think that, oh, you're doing something to help Black children or Hispanic children, anything we do to help one child is going to help all the children, right? So let's just be real about that. And so the community is an amazing community. there's so many great things, but this division is so intentional.
It's intentional.
The political division is so intentional, and it's something that I'm very aware of. So people ask me sometimes about different problems that haven't been solved, and I'm going, well, if they solve the problem, how are they going to stop campaigning on the problem?
How are you going to stop campaigning?
How are you going to stop campaigning on homelessness when you have the money to do the thing, but you didn't do it? But it's easier to just use it as a political issue, because when you make people mad, then you get people on your side, right? Well, if I tell you, like, look at what they're doing, you're like, yeah, they are doing that thing, right? But we could turn that around and say, look at what we can do.
Look what we can do. Being solution focused.
That's
right?
My approach.
Not just really focusing on that problem.
That's my
what
approach.
I learned in COVID while we were encamped in our homes. I'm gonna just put it very nicely.
Hand me that fan.
Right. Okay. Listen.
Okay,
you having one of them.
No shame. No shame. Look,
I keep my fan.
I'm just gonna sit here. Okay.
You look like a doll, by the way.
Thank you.
You know, I learned that a lot of individuals who had hidden agendas really got into position while we were asleep, while our consciousness was asleep. We weren't paying attention. I think we were so busy surviving and fighting over toilet paper, we didn't even see the policies that were being put in place. Right. And so this gave rise to leaders like yourself, right? To now step into office. So you started with Emerge.
Yeah, I did Emerge. I'm on the board now, but I was a member or class in the class of 2009. I believe in educating yourself. If you're going to be part of a community, it's really your responsibility to be educated about how things work. Because one, especially if you're going to sit on a dais and you don't know how things work, things are going to be going over your head. You're not going to understand the rules of engagement, and people are going to run over you, B, disrespect you, and 3, make sure you're ineffective, right? So it's very important to understand the rules. And I went through the Great Valley Leadership Program to understand, like, I live in this community. What's going on with this water? Okay. What is going on with this traffic? What is going on with housing?
Tell us what's going on. Just a little bit, because I know you're truly informed. And there's some things that are going on the ballot. We're going to get to that a little bit later. Yes. We're also going to get to this 900-page paper called Project 2025. I just kind of want to hear your insights. If you do get to, well, I'm going to say when I get there. Come on.
Yes, ma'am.
Ashe. Speaking into existence. When you do get there, what are we looking forward to in your representation on what we can expect from Capitol Hill? And how do we move that legislation? How do we move our voice and you could think about that.
Yeah.
Right. But these are all these things after reading, looking at the news, seeing that Biden step down or stepped aside, right? With the endorsement of our very first African-American and Southeast Asian woman. How do we even support what's happening there? I'm seeing a lot that's happening in the DNC and also in the RNC. And I am just trying to make sure we're making the right decisions for the U.S. government right now.
You have so many good. I'm gonna have to go back and finish.
We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back. That's what we do.
You have great
talk
topics.
About it.
And I don't know if you even know this, but I'm an elected member of the DNC, the Democratic National Committee.
Let's go.
Only DNC member from the Central Valley, right? Because we need a voice. We need to make sure that our community is being represented, that resources are being brought here, and whether people like it or not, it's a democratic state. It doesn't mean that all Democrats think alike. You need to be able to represent your region.
Telling people that.
I am very aware of my region. My region does not look like San Francisco. It does not look like Los Angeles. So it is so important that we have representation that says, yes, I am a Democrat in a Democratic state. And guess what? I'm going to be fighting for the resources that we need here. And so when you're asking about what's happening with the president, I'm going to be honest with you. People put narratives out there.
Yeah, they are.
And that's the divide and conquer
internet
thing.
Finished the rest of it.
Social media was the worst invention ever. But there's a divide and conquer energy. But what I love is you wanted Biden out. Now he's out. And now you notice it's kind of quiet and people are kind of trying to figure it out. Because if you pay attention, the fight has been about the Black vote.
Uh-oh.
Have you paid attention?
I paid attention when we raised $1 million in 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
Listen,
Raised
the black
80
women got
million
on that
80
call.
million, and I was on that call as well. We were on a call with
Ooh, that was
46,000
powerful.
black women.
Yes.
Raised $80 million that evening.
Ooh.
But if you notice, if you're paying attention to former President Trump and other folks, there's constantly this battle for black votes because black voters, especially black women, are dependable voters, and we make sure that we show up. We're
Against that
educated.
narrative,
Yeah.
against that narrative that say that we don't vote and we don't care.
We
That's
close
not
the
true.
gap. We continuously close the gap for this country and for our communities. And so now you have a woman who's, you know, Southeast Asian and African American.
Yes.
You can't take one from the other, you know, from the other. And you know, folks are going, well, wait a minute. Now what's the narrative we have to put out there to be divisive? And so you're seeing people talk about who she dated. As you know, as if she's not educated.
I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna address it.
I'm just going.
We have all, if you a lie, I said it as a good auntie. If you ain't had a boyfriend, you know you shouldn't have been dating in the first place. But let me tell you, where is Willie Brown and where is Kamala? That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say.
I guess she was dating the right people.
That's all I'm gonna say. Where is Kamala? She is where she's supposed to be in this dispensation.
Yeah. So
and y'all need to leave people's business alone.
Absolutely.
That's all I gotta say.
You cannot look at this woman who's been a district attorney, a prosecutor, an attorney general,
minimize
a
her.
U.S. senator,
Minimize
a vice president, and say she slept her way to the top.
I can't do it.
I guess she slept with the right people.
I don't know.
That, to me, that's still smart and strategic.
Right.
But
and you're mad that she was playing chess. I mean, she was playing chess when everybody else was playing checkers. She understood her assignment.
I just think, you know, we have to, as leaders, and for me as a black woman, watching people try to disparage someone, disparage another black woman's credibility. It's happened to me. People try to minimize the things that I've done and try to disparage me as well. And it's just a narrative that we have to say, no, enough is enough. And
I was done with not the even DEI narrative that you're here just because DEI.
Yeah,
you disrespect all of my ancestors that didn't get thrown off the boat, didn't get enslaved or ran away from their slaves. Let's just go way back. You disrespected my mama and my grandmama that paved the way for me to be here. My daddy that worked 4 jobs. Yeah. Come on.
Well, the thing about it is, let's be honest. Okay, so if we were to be honest,
and
it's not to, and so what folks do, and this is another deflection, right? It's like, oh, you can't hold me responsible for my ancestors. No one's holding anybody responsible for anyone's ancestors, but no, you can't. You can't do that. But what you can say is
you are capitalizing on that privilege. And a lot of people don't know that slavery was a bartership. It was a capitalism. It was capitalism at its best. If it wasn't cotton, it was the skin and the bodies that were capitalized on. They were insured. Those insured bombs also went into y'all trust that also multiplied into your banks.
Let's bring it to the current day, right?
Listen,
let's bring it to current day.
You're still living
a lot of things that have happened, whether it's Black codes, Brown v. Education, those things have happened in people's lifetimes that are alive right now.
Yes,
right? And so those things, even though they're not written anymore, or we say that we don't do those things, they still affect systems. So at the end of the day, maybe you said, you know, yes, we want to educate all the Black children, but in the state of California, I'm not even going to talk about the nation. In the state of California, African American students is the lowest performing subgroup of students. So whether you still agree with that policy, that bad policy or not, systemically, that is still happening.
And we're the most incarcerated, and we're the most in the CPS system.
And so ironically, coincidentally, all of those codes that used to exist are no longer legal, but yet somehow we still have the lowest performing subgroup, the lowest home ownership, those things are still happening.
Because those practices are embedded in those policies. And that's why we need people like you who understand, that can decipher policy, upgrade policy, and support where we're at now.
And that does not take anything away from anyone else.
Thank you.
And that is what we have to understand. And sometimes it's also about understanding where we've come from.
Yes.
It's not about making you feel bad for what your ancestors did. It's about understanding where you come from so you don't accidentally go there again.
And well, so my ancestors owned us too. So I tell people,
so you really got it.
I'm
So you
18%.
guilty too then.
Listen, but we didn't get a chance to capitalize on the
Mhm.
enslavement of our family members, right? But that my third great grandfather, the Pierces, who were very known slave, community and family, and got a hospital named after them, got large land in Atlanta, Georgia. We didn't capitalize off of their capital. So again, it's so many things. There's so many layers. Yeah. If we get away from the dialogue, we can have the discussion. We got to engage in the dialogue so we can have an understanding.
So even if let's pretend you don't want to have the dialogue, you should at least want to do better. So when you ask me about the nonprofit, all these different things, when I'm moving through a community, my kids are growing up in this community and I'm seeing kids not making it. And the superintendent wants to work with me. We're going to start an organization. The organization is called Sow a Seed. Mm-hmm. And the whole concept is, especially when you deal with young people, right? Deal with this with my own kids. You never know when the lessons you teach, the things that you expose them to, positive things, are going to actually germinate, come into fruition, and actually, really blossom into positive things. Right. You just don't know what that is, but you can at least make the effort to give them an opportunity, right? Opportunities that did not exist for them before, right? Making sure that they have the resources. And so that's what that's about. But looking at our community, I've served on our planning commission, right? And that really is a very important role. I feel like anybody who's serving in government should have to serve on a planning commission, because you determine how your community is going to grow, right? How things are going to be zoned. Are you going to put some pollutant? You got to be competent. Are you going to put pollution next to poor people? Right. Like, are you going to do those things? Yes. Right. You have to be competent. You also have to really want to make sure things are happening. I've said on that dais as a planning commissioner for years, and I'm not going to name names, but sometimes you see people, you get 300, 400 pages dropped off to you in a week, and you're going, I hope you read that, because we got decisions to make, right? And so there's so many good ways for people everyone can help to participate in this community. And that's what, to me, if you're going to fix education for the kids, if you're going to fix housing, there's so many ways to get involved. You don't have to get elected. I chose that way after, being asked a couple times and getting in there, and honestly recognizing that you really can, even when you're fighting and you're not in the majority, you can still get things done. Because
I love it.
I've been in the minority where it's just like, okay, y'all just don't want to do anything. You don't want to be effective because you want it the old way. So you can continue to say,
well, whose money did you take? Hold on, somebody.
Well, sometimes it was like not taking the money, not taking money that you could use to fix the community. To me, is if it's not your money, to me, it's dereliction of duty.
I'm talking about that endorsement money. And see, you can make some promises to some people. You know what I mean? That doesn't have the alignment. They want to keep the status quo in line. I do believe that we have someone backstage, though, that is going to be joining us. We actually have 4 people. Look at you. You're super light. I love it. You are a queen on fire, for real, for her community, and fighting for the justice and the rights of our people. We're going to bring our first guest on, and we're going to ask them to introduce themselves. Let's see how this works here.
I know who we have.
All right, let's go. All right, who's our first guest? Hello.
Hi. Hi, Ray.
How are you? Thank you for being with us today. So tell me, how do you know Rhodesia?
Well, I met Rhodesia about 12 years ago. Actually, I know exactly when I met her. It's 12 years ago last month. We connected on a lot of different levels. Sometimes you meet somebody new and you just sort of have an instant rapport with them. And she was that kind of person. And that's because Rhodesia is just real. She's genuine all the time. Rhodesia is always Rhodesia. It doesn't matter where she is or what she's doing. And I connected with Sow a Seed. Did some volunteer work with that. I still am connected with that organization. And then, just watching her work in the community So we've been friends and colleagues for the past 12 years.
Yep.
And so that's sort of my history with Rhodesia.
I love it, Barbara. So you know then, and you've been a supporter that Rhodesia is running now for our state assembly.
Yep.
What do you want maybe future supporters or people who've been looking on to Rhodesia as a leader, or maybe is on the fence on who they're going to vote for? What do you want them to know about
Good
Rhodesia?
questions.
Well, I was listening to your conversation, and besides, all her education and all the work she's done, I think probably one of the most important things for people to know is that she gets things done. She sees a problem and she figures out how to tackle it. And I think probably one of her most important qualities in terms of being our future legislator in the assembly is that she's a coalition builder, and she does that naturally. She brings people together on an issue from all different backgrounds, from all different ideas, and she gets them working together. I saw her do that with our homelessness task force in Tracy. Like overnight, she brought 100 different organizations together and they got themselves coordinated under her leadership. And this is the type of thing she does. And that's the way you get things done. That's how she's going to get things done in the legislature that are going to be important to our area. Besides, she really knows what our issues are and she understands them. So she will get that work done.
I love it.
You,
That is a
Barbara.
beautiful testament
It is.
to who you are, your ability to connect to people. That's so important. And we need to hear from real life people. You know
Yeah,
how you just
yeah.
have, endorsements from people like me, I matter only because. But for people who have worked closely with you, have supported you, that really, really genuinely know you, we want to hear from those people. And so I thank you so much, Barbara, for coming on
Thanks, Barb.
and just supporting us. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Nice chatting with you.
Thanks.
Thank you. So,
Yeah.
you haven't yet told us, okay, so you killed the primaries. Come on, let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Like you
Oh,
were
man.
out there knocking on doors, walking.
Listen.
It was strategic.
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was very strategic. I
Uh-huh.
mean, without going too deep in the weeds,
Yeah.
there's an intentional block of folks who just want to block people who want to be effective. I'm not coming here to fight with nobody. I'm not coming here to cause no problems. I'm only here to make a difference and to do good work. And if you want to do good work with me, let's get it done. Now, if you just don't want to do anything and you just want to be in power and show up for the pictures, I'm not your girl. You don't want to work for me. That's performative.
Not just a photo.
Yeah, I don't do performative, right?
Okay.
And so me running for the seat, I started off running for the open Senate seat. You might remember. I was running for the open Senate seat. Senator Eggman has been a friend and mentor for many years, and she's terming out.
Shout out.
Run for that seat. Shout out. I was going to run for that seat and mind my own little business and be a senator. But unfortunately, the current assembly member decided, to play a game. He and his wife both wanted both legislative seats that we have here in this county. And so what they did is they tried to switch at the last minute, but when you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So
boom, boom.
I mean, it doesn't take it wasn't rocket science.
That was Hunter's point, y'all. For y'all that didn't catch that.
That was just like, I feel
you
like
stay ready, you don't gotta get ready. Listen, I need that in the state legislation.
Absolutely, because I'm just gonna be real with you. Like, you cannot be a leader and not be prepared, right?
Okay.
If you don't see something like that coming down the line, then you really shouldn't even be in leadership because you're not able to move politically, right?
Well.
And in order to be a good governance person, you have to understand these nasty little local politics that we deal with. And so
be willing to deal with
it. So as much as I really, I had the assembly member come to me and said, like, look, I want to be in that seat, and why don't we switch? Then we could have done that very amicably, because I just want to be able to make a difference for my community, right? And at the end of the day, this is not personal for me. But we were running against, an heir apparent, a kind of a name thing. People were like, oh, you can't beat the name. Well, I have my own name.
Come on.
And my name is associated with goodness.
Yes.
My name is associated with making sure that we are accomplishing things for good people. And my team, we've been out all day, and I've just been surprised at how my journey to running for the state legislator has state legislature has exposed me to so many good people
Yes.
for the right reasons, whether it was on a nonprofit board, whether it was to help deal with an issue for homelessness, to help, with affordable housing projects and things like that. That in and of itself has spoken for itself. But unfortunately, the sad part about campaigns, when you say I was everywhere, it takes a lot of money.
Yes, it does.
You have to be a person that people believe in, because they have to make investments. And then people will go, oh my gosh, she got money from San Francisco.
Right.
Well, guess what? Half the people in this county work in San Francisco.
That's
so
right.
It doesn't really, you're not going to shame me out of raising the resources that I need to be able to compete in order to make sure that people have a fair, honest choice in the election, because their choice, they were trying to take the choice away from the people. And so that's what you saw. And we tried to do that as classy as we possibly could, but we have to tell the truth about who we are and who other folks are. And
you didn't stand down. I said, okay, she got some backbone. Listen.
Well, and keep in mind that there's also what's called independent expenditures, where there are other folks, whether it's labor unions, and I'm fortunate enough that I have business and labor support. You had other folks who were like, no, we believe in you, and we don't want to see this other nasty, political shenanigan thing happening. So they also put money out there. But you cannot take anything for granted. Even right now, in the race that I'm in now, which is myself and a woman who was in the January 6th insurrection as my opponent, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to bring on your campaign manager before we got into that.
Okay.
All right. So next we have Rhodesia's campaign manager, and we'll love for her to come on and support with how we've been strategically, and I'm a supporter as well, supporting Rhodesia and her ability to show up. So hello, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello ladies. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, we can't see you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So she's been ripping and running.
Okay, gotcha.
And so we wanted to give her some grace. She's been out there campaigning.
Yes, she has.
So please tell us your full name, and also how can we find you or connect with you?
Hi, yes. So my name is Melissa Santos. I am proudly Rhodesia Ransom's campaign manager in her assembly race. And yes, the best way to reach us is through our website, voteransom.com. You can also reach us directly at our campaign office. We have a campaign office right here in the heart of Stockton, downtown. You can reach out directly at 209-576-5616. You can text or call and let us know how you'd like to get involved.
I love that, Melissa. So right now, can you tell us like approximately how many volunteers? What are you looking at to, maybe just briefly a strategy that maybe, the viewers or supporters want to kind of know how we're going to get out there and support Rhodesia?
Yes, so we need all the help that we can get. Many hands make, for light work is what Rhodesia likes to say. Yes, so as much help as we can get. We currently have a internship program. We have 4 interns that are going to be working with our campaign, and there's been a lot of interest from other young folks, young students interested in getting involved. So we want to give them a good experience. We want them to make their voices heard and engage their peers because they are the future, and we want to see them get involved in this democratic process. And as far as volunteers, there's so many opportunities for volunteering. We're going to be having virtual phone banks. People can phone bank from their homes. They can join us at our office to phone bank. They can come out and join at a canvas. They can help us canvass their own neighborhoods. They can talk to their own neighbors and remind them about the election and what's at stake, and tell them a little bit about Rhodesia.
I love that. What has been like the most memorable memory that you've had now on the campaign? You've been campaigning for how many months now?
Oh gosh, it's over a year now.
It's been over a year.
It's been since last year,
right? Because you start last year.
Yes, I launched March 2023.
What has been some of the most memorable memories or from one of the constituents in the district that shared something that really motivated the campaign?
For me, something that's been very memorable was probably the week of the primary, where we had paid canvassers that were out talking to the constituents or the voters, and we were getting really good feedback about Rhodesia. I went out, I was talking to voters, and there was someone that had heard of her but didn't know a lot of details, asked me to tell him a little bit about Rhodesia, and I was so happy to tell them so many details that were just real and genuine, things that I had personally experienced with Rhodesia. Like Barbara said, she is a problem solver. She is someone that's determined to find a solution to the problems that we see in our community. Even when you come to her with a small problem, her goal is to help you find a solution. So that was one of my favorite memories, is being able to be 100% real with someone and just fresh off the dome, just tell them like, what is my experience with Rhodesia and what a great leader she is.
I love it. I love it. And we need authenticity right now.
Yeah.
Like in this day and age of that, like you said, that prancing and that prompting, we're looking for the authentic leaders we can get a hold of. We can talk about the issues we're seeing in our communities. And you're actually going to bring our stories back to the floor at the state capitol and be able to keep that in your mind while you're making decisions.
I'm gonna bring you. And you don't just bring the story. Sometimes you got to bring the people, because this region is so different than people who have louder voices, right? So we have to elevate and amplify our voices. You can't just go there to be there. You have to go there to do something, and you cannot do that without, one, having your finger on the pulse, but two, bringing the people along with you, so you can touch the hearts and the minds of the people who are the decision makers.
Come on.
So many people don't understand that local politics and state legislature, to me, is not about Sacramento. Sacramento tried so hard to weigh in on who was going to win this election.
Ooh, wow.
But it was really up to the people who live here, what they care about, what they need, what they're experiencing. Politics is local. Even for Congressman Harder, who I served for the congressman, even for him, he can't just be at the federal level, staying in D.C. doing D.C. work. That thing has to touch us
and
here.
He does really well.
He does good
with staying on the ground and staying connected. We participated in his town halls and connecting with the people. Melissa, I want to thank you so much. I know it's hard work being able to represent, being able to be strategic and have that strength, as well as take care of your family. But we thank you so much. We thank you for coming on. Please drop again the information where people can find the website. I know we have it scrolling down at the bottom, but would you be the point person if any other podcasts or any other outlets want to have Rhodesia on?
Absolutely. Yes. Reach out to me directly. My email is Melissa, MELISSA @voteransom.com. You can also reach us through our website. You can make a donation. You can sign up to volunteer. You can request a yard sign. Please do reach out to us. We are very happy to have any kind of help that we can get.
Thank you.
Ashe. Thank you, Quinn. We appreciate you.
See, there's something for everybody.
It's
everybody
something for
can
everybody.
help. No excuses.
And that phone banking sounds real good in this heat.
Yeah.
Listen.
Right? Yeah.
I might not be able to canvas, but I can go pick up a telephone.
Yeah. And
do you know Rhodesia? Come on, somebody.
Thank you.
So I know we have two other guests, and we're coming to our time, and I want to make sure that our guests have the ability to uplift you and support you. I think this really shapes who you are as a person, because you never really know what people gonna say.
You don't know I don't even know who you would have back there. So I'm like, who's there?
Okay, let's bring up our third guest here. All right. Hello. Please introduce yourself.
Who's there?
Is your audio activated? Are you there? Okay. They might have stepped away. We've been on the podcast for a minute. Let's try our other guest.
Okay.
All right. We have another guest here. All right.
Oh, Nancy D.
Look at you and your connections, guys.
That's my mayor.
Oh my goodness. Hello, Mayor. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I rushed home as soon as I got home, 7:30. I was like, can I log on now? So I've just been sitting here listening to the conversation for a little bit now.
I love it. Thank you, Mary. You're doing stupendous in your ability to lead and in the years of leadership. And when you say you're endorsing somebody, I think that leads by itself, because the way you lead. And so what can you tell our viewers and our listeners about Rhodesia, and why is she the best pick in this moment in time?
Well, I have to start with one of the things that Rhodesia had mentioned about the need for someone to serve on planning commission. But, I was robbed of that opportunity because when I met a young lady in the hallway interviewing for that position, and she just snatched that planning commission right on up. And
no,
that was Rhodesia Ransom. So, but it's okay. It's all right.
Goodness, you guys went out for the same.
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
yeah.
Isn't that so funny?
That's how we met.
But we didn't really know each other yet. We were both in the world of mentorship, so our paths began to cross even more. I had my own mentor program called Living on Purpose in the community, and then I led a mentor program for 10 years at Campbell High School called Student Discovery Program, which Rhodesia was a part of. And then she had Sow a Seed, and I used to take my young men to the young men's group, and then the young ladies. That was part of Deltas, really. I would take my young ladies to that as well. So we crossed paths in that, and so it was fine because Rhodesia was more qualified than I was in planning, anyways. But I did learn. I had to learn on the job, but it's okay. So some things you get prepared for. For me, I sat in the audience for 4 years, and I took notes at council meetings before I actually ran and won in 2012. But working with Rhodesia has been on multiple levels. Like I said, the first was through mentorship. And I think the main thing that I've noticed that many great leaders are either ministers or they work with young people because they have a heart for people, and they can see people in every capacity, that every single person is important, no matter how old or how young or how rich or how poor. And that speaks to her heart for homelessness. When I was on the council by myself asking about what can we do for homelessness, it was such a great help when she came on 4 years later and brought in her experiences, and not just talking, but hit the ground running. And that's what we need in leaders. We need people that can hit the ground running, not only with ideas, but the follow through and the connections wherewithal to make it happen. See, so many people talk about stuff, but they do nothing. And those are the people you don't have to worry about. Nobody's going to complain about them. Nobody's going to fuss about them. Nobody's going to ever say they're doing a horrible job, because they have no job to be done, to be compared to. It's only those that are doing something that somebody wants to say something negative about. But that's okay, because then we know we're in good company, because we serve the Lord, and I know Rhodesia does too. And so they didn't like him. And so I was talking to someone earlier today about Abraham Lincoln. Do you think he was loved at the time that he even died? No. It was many, many decades and centuries later, so people could appreciate the sacrifice that was done. So we have to be able to give flowers while we're here. And so that's why I'm here to support Rhodesia. I supported her when she ran in 2016 for council, when I was running for re-election. We did a lot of events together. I invited her to all of my events. I had her speak at every single one. So because you need two good people up here. And so we have to be able to uplift one another.
I want to point out
forward.
the reason that's important, what she just brought up, is because people tried to put us against each other. So we were both running at the same time, and people would say, they're not going to elect two Black women at the same time. Well, there were 2 seats. So we ran for 2 seats. We did not compete against each other. We were both doing good work in the community. I called her and I said, look, I just want to let you know I want to run. And she's like, go for it. There was no tearing me down. There was no jealousy. There was like, hey, come to my event. And I invited her to mine. And we both ran for the seat. So that was really important for me to point out why that was relevant.
Thank you for that.
Because it is so important to know, like, serving the community is not a competition, right? Okay. It's everyone's responsibility. And so I thank you, Mayor, for how you handled that in the time when people were really trying to divide us. So thank you for that.
And again, that's what sets us apart. I put that quote on my Facebook, and I meant that. The savagery that we see sometimes, the divisiveness, is really ungodly. If you really think about that, you should not be working in that type of energy. Yeah. And if you're a healer, if you're a minister, if you're someone that cares and you use empathy to connect with people, it should be a part of your testament as a person on your daily life. Mayor, I thank you. I think about even your race. And I was hoping to have you as our county supervisor. But there will be a day and time where we'll see that dias change too. It has not been able to change. I haven't seen no color up there for years. Years. And
Yeah.
that's unfortunate
Mhm.
because we come with different lived experiences
There you
and
go.
ability to support other individuals with lived experiences as well.
Yeah,
That's
and I
important.
appreciate you for saying that way, because people think when we talk about color, we're just talking about color.
Right.
We're talking about representation. We're
Come
talking
on.
about lived experiences. We're talking about what this community looks like,
Yes.
and just being able to usher in, solutions.
Yes.
And sometimes, that's just not what's happening, because some folks have just gotten elected and not been able to bring that lived experience, and don't even want to hear from the people with the lived experience. So
and don't
that's
bring
very
the
important.
solutions
Yeah.
because we've lived the lived experiences. So we have the solutions we might have worked out already.
Yeah.
And we can put it on a very wide platform to support change that we want to see in our communities.
Mhm.
What are the largest issues that come to your mind, both of you as leaders, that we're going to, once she's elected into that seat, that we're going to have to focus on to get California back on track?
Ooh, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that. I have.
I'm going to wait. I'll let you weigh in on because you're going to be at that level.
So of course, at the end of the day, no matter what party you're in, no matter what race or nationality you're in, the cost of living in California is out of control.
Listen, have y'all bought groceries lately?
It is unsustainable, and it is unconscionable what the cost of living is in the state of California. I have 3 adult kids. They've done everything they're supposed to do. We make these social contracts, go to school,
right?
Be a good human. My kids have done those things.
Right.
They make good money, but these kids can't afford to live here.
Right.
So now you can't be mad that people are moving out,
Come on.
and then our seniors can't afford to live here. They've been here their whole lives and they want to downsize. They cannot afford to live here. Our businesses are being, costed out and taxed out of our state. And for what? So that is something that we definitely have to get a handle on. Housing affordability, we're seeing people move here from the Bay Area, and then the people who are here are being pushed further south and further north. So we have to be very intentional about solving housing affordability for the state of California. We also have, I feel like there's a lot of pressure now. I would say, don't tell the people in Sacramento I'm saying this, but they're going to probably hear this. I feel like there's a lot of pressure for people to just pass laws.
Yes.
But how effective are those laws, right? And these laws are costing people money. They're costing time. And are they really effective?
Yes.
And so,
because that's not lived experience. Too many people are passing laws that haven't lived through it, that haven't served through it at different levels, and they don't know the consequences of their actions.
Right.
Come on, Mayor.
And these cities are struggling because the state will put, a thing out there that a city is supposed to figure out how to solve that, and it's going to cost the city more money, and the city's going to charge you more money. It's just not sustainable.
And no one doesn't want to go bankrupt. Let's just talk about it.
No one wants to go bankrupt. We have agricultural industries here, and I'm like, when did eggs get to be this expensive, right? So these things are things that our legislators can get involved in and be very intentional about solving. I'm definitely committed to.
So that's a bipartisan. We both hear that with the RNC and the DNC.
There.
Okay.
There's no partisanship there. This community is the folks who live here. We are all dealing with the same thing. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, whatever it is, your gas is out of control. Your PG&E is out of control. Your cost of living is not sustainable. What used to be an affordable community is no longer affordable. So we have to get a handle on that. And there's just so many other things that are coming down the pike in Sacramento. The fact that everyone's supposed to be driving an electric car, all of these different things. Are people prepared for that? So we need to get prepared for that. We need to look ahead.
We don't have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
There's a balance for innovation. There's a balance for for all of that, for technology. And so we get all this innovation and we get ahead of ourselves, and then we don't have all the different things, like you said. We don't have all the infrastructure to make it successful. But it's these unfunded liabilities, not unfunded liabilities, but all these things that we are mandated, unfunded mandates. So when you get there, Ms. Ransom, make sure that we're not having all these.
Having sat on the dais and had to make decisions, in a structural budget deficit that, the state of California treated all of us like we were the same apples, no matter what region we were in. Those are some things that are very concerning, right?
Yes.
And then having a state as large as we are, the 5th largest economy in the world, California is. And why do we not have any data on how effective our homelessness dollars have been? That is just, I come from a world where you don't get the dollars if you can't prove your work, right? You work in nonprofit. How are you getting funded? You have to prove that you have done the thing you said you're going to do. the state doesn't have to do
And
that.
there's no excuse. There's no excuse because there's too many data companies. I go all over the country, going to a number of things. I serve on a national board for the Council of Governments, and it's filled with data companies, company for everything that you can think of.
So we just have to do better. And so it's really funny because y'all, people think, oh, it's a Democratic state. You know, it's up to the Democrats.
Yeah,
to hold the
let's
other
address that.
Democrats need to hold Democrats accountable, right? We
Okay.
have to do that work together.
Okay.
We have to do that work together.
So when you were saying that there is a collection of Democrats and there's a difference in the Democrat belief system, when people lump us all together, how do you go into conversation and dialogue to support that? Because a lot of times, again, we have first-time voters. We have our individuals who have been justice served. They don't even know they can vote in the state of California. If you're not actively on parole or probation, even if you have a felony, you can vote in the state of California. So a lot of people have just thrown the whole ticket away. They won't listen to individuals. They won't go searching for information. What can you tell the individuals that's going to be different this year? What are you needing?
So I can speak for myself. When folks are like, you know, they treat us like sheep. So when I started running for office, people started telling me, you need to get in this lane. You know, you have to jump in. There's the moderate and there's the progressive. I'm like, well, where is the pragmatic, right? Where are the people who make decisions based on what's best for the community?
There
because that's the caucus I want to be part of. That's the lane that I want to be in, the lane that gets things done. And so the proof is always in the pudding, right? So for me, having been being the candidate that has a record of service, you can look and see that my decisions are not Democratic, they're not Republican, there are solution-oriented decisions, right? And so, yes, I am a Democrat. That is, you know, I feel like my values are more closely aligned in that way, because I feel like you need a team, right? You're going to be in politics, you got to have a team. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need to lead that team.
Yes.
And I pride myself on making sure that giving people the courage, right? Because if we're all expected to do something, somebody has to give the courage to say, like, I know that's what they expect us to do, but that's not going to work.
Is it feasible?
That's not feasible. That's not going to help our community. And we can't just do this because we are registered this way or that way, or that because that's the expectation, right?
Yes.
So that's how I've been able to navigate that. And I think when I know for a fact when I get to Sacramento, that's what I'm going to do, because that's what I've done before, you know.
Yes. As a mayor, Mayor Nancy, what are you looking for? Where do you contend, or other mayors within the mayoral caucus through the cities, what are they looking for in state representatives when they have issues that are happening within their cities and they know they need to get a hold of their representatives? From your experience, what are you looking for? What are the attributes?
Well, the number one thing is accessibility, because without accessibility, then there's no real accountability. And then people just get there and do whatever they want. And so as long as there are representatives that we can sit at the table and talk together. See, I tell you what, Rhodesia and I, when we first met each other, I was registered Republican. And of course, as she says, Democrat. And so, but many things we've worked hand in hand on, because these are not partisan type issues, the solutions that we're seeking for. And you have to be able to cross the aisle. And so I've been fortunate to be able to get into some rooms that some people just look at me and like they automatically think I'm Democrat. But then other rooms, I was able to even bring Rhodesia in to the rooms, because sometimes when people trust you and they just trust your decisions, then they're able to open up and to hear you more. So I have actually, at the advice of Susan Eggman, our current senator, have stepped into the middle a number of years ago, just because there was a lot of stupidity going on in that particular party. But I've always been very independent in my decisions. And so I think it's very important that you can be able to talk to your representatives, whether they're the same party or not, because there are city issues and there's people issues that should not be based on partisanship. Since when do you have to be a Democrat to care about people? Right. I mean, since when do you have to be a Republican to care about finances? Right. I'm like, it's unfair. I mean, you're not Christian if you're not Republican. It's not fair to try to box people in, because when we're talking to our representatives at every level, whether it's a person coming to me or me coming to our state, our federal legislation, or I can't even say county, but if I tried, it should be just about what is needed. And just to look at things that, and realistically, as budgets are being cut right now, it's being cut in some areas that cities have had to put up money first. And then, and because the money hasn't been spent yet, it's like, oh, that money's in that bucket. Let's take that out. It's like, wait.
Right.
Now we can't get reimbursed. And now you put us in a bad situation. So I just want legislative that everybody don't have to know everything. None of us do.
Okay.
Just be real. Just be real. Know your contacts and try to get the help for us as we need it.
You know, and you made a point, you know, and historically growing up, I was Republican. We voted Republicans. My mama and daddy and the pastor said so. Yeah. You made a point. I want you to be very specific with this point because I have a lot of different listeners from different generations that are on right now. How do you support the core belief of humanity to do what's right, what's best for the entire community? When you know there is a historical belief system that you come from, how do you support your self-belief, independent belief system when you go to those polls? What should you be looking for? Can you give us some advice? Both of you, I want to open that up, that dialogue.
I'm looking for good humans, right? And I'm looking for people who have walked the walk and walk the talk, right? I'm looking for people who are who they say they are in every single room. Because a lot of times we just see that people are one way when they're campaigning and then they get the job and they're completely different people, right? And that is something we've seen over and over again. And so I'm always looking to see, because sometimes people are not going to be experienced, right? So, but what have you done? When people say, oh, I'm running because I want to get involved. Well, we've had a whole pandemic. We've had kids on the street. Like, what have you done that demonstrates that you wanted to be involved?
To get involved.
You did not have to be serving in public office, but you could have done, everybody could have done something. You served the kids, anything, the kids at this church or something. You could have done anything to get involved. We
need the receipts.
Yeah, some kind of receipt. Everybody doesn't need to know everything. Yeah. I just also want to backtrack on Mayor Nancy Young's point about being accessible as a leader. There's so many things that can happen if people are accessible and responsive. And so I've personally experienced, I worked for the congressman and he was on the appropriations committee and wanted to give money to people in this region. Well, there's folks who didn't want to talk to us as Democrats who lead our community, who would not take my call, who would not take his call. Like, we had to fight to get dollars into this community. So accessibility is very important, and being able to put aside pettiness. I look for those kind of people. When you say, what are we looking for? People who can be accessible, who will put aside their petty politics just to get something done. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for.
Something that we can look for.
Yeah.
So people need to be collaborative, and you need to get a good feel for people. I mean, there's somebody running right now, and I just feel like, and they want me to give them my endorsement. There's no way that I'm going to do that. But I can tell even that just intuition and experience that this is not going to be a good person, not for our community. And so I'm not saying that they're not a good person overall, but for this particular role. And so many times I may have voted, maybe it's for whatever policy it is, no matter who puts it forward. It's amazing to me how some people won't support something, even if they know it's good, because it's been put forth by a certain person. That's insanity to me. So when it comes to people, individuals, it has to be the person that I support. And I have to say many of the people that I've supported over the years, even registered as Republican, were Democrat. It's just that person that I felt would be the best person for that particular job. Yeah. And so from the federal level on down to the everyday level, but it's what you do that shows what you will do. And I know Rhodesia and I've had these conversations before, because so many people would say what they will do. Well, show me what you've done. If you've done nothing in the past, then don't tell me what you're going to do. Just show me. I'm like the show me state. What was that? Missouri? No, that's misery. Or St. Louis, what was it? Show me. Whoever, show me. By doing something. Yeah. And so, I mean, even if you just leave the PTA, go out and volunteer for the little kids' lunch time. Do something that shows that you care about people, not want to be seen. It's the servant leaders that we need these days. It's the world. You're never going to solve the world issues. You're never going to have world peace. That's just not what it's going to be. But you can get people in office that's going to move the needle and make a difference.
Yeah.
Shay,
So
thank
important.
you, Queen.
And lastly,
I appreciate you.
lastly, to answer that question,
Yeah.
you have to have people who have a backbone, because when you get involved, people come to you and they want you to be enemies with their enemies.
Woo.
Just because they don't like a person, they want you to not like a person.
Well,
And that is just, I mean, it's really a lot of kind of high school,
right.
Behavior. And so we experienced that.
Junior high.
Literally getting involved. Here we are trying to serve the community, and somebody says, "Oh, we're not friends with her." I'm like, "You're not friends with her. That's not my problem."
Right.
So that is not how we serve the community. So we really want to be able to go in and be educated and prepared and thoughtful and solution oriented in order to really solve. We got real issues. We got to be able to.
Real issues.
We got to be adults in the room in order to get it.
You got to be the adults in the room. You got to lead.
Can I just say that you have to be a warrior too. You can't be scary.
Yeah.
Because different times you're going to have to go, and it doesn't matter that the other people around you may not agree. You have to be that one in the room that's going to stand up and speak for someone else, because you never know when you're going to change the minds of other people. They just need some reason to change their mind. They need somebody that can say, okay, I agree with you.
Yes, they need
Listen, y'all are
thank
speaking.
you, Mayor Nancy.
I'm like, let's pass the offering plate. Listen, I am excited. I am excited. Thank you to the beautiful Black queens that joined us in that dialogue. We needed that. We needed to hear and remind us that we're not going crazy. We do have leaders that have that perspective, that can support growth, that can support progression in the right way, and that can move across the aisle. And I thank you so much, Mayor Nancy Young. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah. So we have one more guest as we tune out of here, and this has been such a blessing to have you here. You are well spoken. You are beautiful. You have an intellect that's through the roof. You're going to be amazing when you represent us at the state. And who is your opponent that's going to be running against you?
So there's a young, I want to call her young. She might be, I don't know how old she is, honestly. Denise Mendez Aguilar. She lives here in Stockton. She is my opponent. She's a Republican woman. I met her during the campaign trail. She is definitely engaged in the community, but we're engaged in very different ways, right? Our beliefs are very different in regards to, you have someone in her that believes in banning books. She's very engaged in the Capitol.
Banning books.
Banning books.
Hold on now.
Yes. So,
she's from them Florida.
You know what?
People that
so
be banning books.
Let me just tell y'all, I was very shocked because USA Today, I got a tweet or something. I get Google alerts, and it said something about, this woman was involved in the insurrection.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, and I was like, no, it's just not
help
real.
Us, Lord.
Yeah,
she was a part of the insurrection.
Yeah, so apparently, and you can check it out yourself. USA Today did an article where I guess she tried to scrub her social media and remove, because this district, at the end of the day, we do have a lot of
look at my mouth. My mouth is open. I'm holding on.
We're a moderate community, but like when people are finding out just the level of engagement in things that we just socially don't get behind. We believe that was a fair election that took place in 2020.
Yes.
And so so my opponent is involved here in the community.
Nobody. My God. It was too much going on at the insurrection, and they try to make it go away. People were killed. People were mauled. Walked over. Nooses hung.
I try really hard to stick to my own campaign, but when I tell you the information that I got, I was actually kind of blown away that was someone from our community who was in DC, giving live reports about how they were outside of, Nancy Pelosi's office and kind of giving a blow by blow of how they were engaged in
just invoking
insurrection our country.
Just invoking terror.
Yeah,
it was very terrifying. All those testimonials I heard, the mama that had to give the testimonial about the Capitol police officer that died.
Yes,
it was so much horror that was happening.
Yeah, it was. And so for me,
when you say
who's my opponent, I met her during the campaign trail, and her mom lives in Tracy. I mean, and I'm not taking away, I'm just saying our values are very different. And so what happened in the insurrection was just unconscionable. Again, we had police officers being, mauled, and we had people going in there with guns. We had citizens killed, and we're breaching, the entire Capitol, and just really mayhem, right? All because a fair democratic process did not go the way you wanted it to go.
And you threw a tantrum.
And that's beyond
that was a big old tantrum. And it
Mm.
was a whistle from the then chief of America.
And that's very concerning, right? Because those dog whistles are divisive and they are very harmful to our community. And that is really, honestly, when you look at how this country has gone since, Obama was president, then we got the next president, which is kind of the answer to Obama. And then we've been fighting to take us back to that ever since, right?
I'm thrown off by just the news.
I'm going to let you go do your own homework. I'm just going to say that our values are different. Our values are different. And my proof point.
Well, Denise, you are more than welcome to come on this podcast and refute what has been said. But in this point, any person that was there with the intent of destroying, hanging someone, they were talking about hanging people. They were talking about hanging the legislature. That is so disrespectful, beyond criminal. To tear up the Capitol in that way. And it wasn't even built by any of y'all ancestors that tore it up. It was built by our ancestors.
That part.
It was built by Black slaves, and you go in there and tear something like that up. That was too much for me.
The narrative behind it is a lot. And so for me, I just want to make sure this is about the issues, right? This run for the state assembly, I want to make sure it's like about the issues, and then it's about being inclusive, right? I want to make sure that if people have the support that they need as they move about this community. The financial issues, they're Democratic issues, they're Republican issues, but the caring for humans and allowing people to be who they are, whether they love who they want to love, no matter what that is, I think that is very important. And also I'm very intentional about looking out for our youth, right? And so
I'm worried about if the FBI got her name. It's too much going on.
When I tell you that
I'm being comical, but if y'all saw how I was sitting up there watching that, I said, this is some behavior you see on a movie.
It was a very sad day. Like, honestly, I remember exactly where I was when the Capitol was breached and the whole thing started, right? Most of us remember that was like a day of terrorism for us, right? So that was a very sad day for our country. That happened, and that we could not just move on with a fair election process, and that people had to get heard. And
it was cognitive. I talk about cognitive dissonance when you choose to keep a reality that is not the true reality, but you think it's the truth. Then you move out on it,
right?
And you harm people.
I'm
really flabbergasted right now. I'm being comical about it, but that's how I process trauma.
I'll send you the link that was sent to me, so you can do your own homework. I have not posted about this or talked about it because I feel like people will do their own homework, and the fact that the newspaper put it out there, they did their own little researching and digging.
Oh my goodness.
But at the end of the day, it's important for me to get my message out for what I'm going to do. And that's what I'm doing. I'm going out making sure people know that I'm standing with them in this community for the issues that are really plaguing this community. And I think that is so important.
And that's what we need at the Capitol.
That's what we need.
Right? Bring it back down. Bring our voices up. So we have one more guest. I want to bring this guest on before we end the hour here.
I'm so curious. I'm like, who do you?
Rhodesia. Hi, Sam. Hi, ladies.
Did you see how I said, Mario? Like
my favorite woman in the entire world.
That is my friend. This is Mr. Optimistic.
There it is.
Yes. Rhodesia is my sister. I love you. I'm always rooting for you. I'm always in your corner.
I feel like I've watched this man grow up. Like, I know you were grown when I met you, but you were young grown. Oh my gosh.
Mario, thank you. Mario, I was just telling her about how powerful your message and of coming up through the ranks you were, the resiliency, the adversity that you had to overcome just to be at this point, right? And I was telling Rhodesia that supporting individuals with lived experiences. So I want you to chime in on to the viewers and the listeners, and help them understand who Rhodesia is and why she is the best choice for to represent us at the Capitol.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've known Rhodesia for nearly 15 years of my life, and I'll tell you right now, she is a woman of character, of values. She talks about her grandmother, and as someone raised by strong women, she talks about her grandmother, and public service is her life. It is at her core. And I told you even last week, RC, look at the record, look who shows up and speaks up. And Rhodesia shows up and speaks up, unlike her opponent. She's always shown who she is. She's never faltered in her integrity, which now more than ever we need in our politics. We don't need mediocre leaders who just woke up one day and said, "Oh, I want to run for office." Rhodesia has been consistent from day one since she was a young girl. And that is something that I've always appreciated and respected.
Yes.
I always joke with Rhodesia. She's not Auntie Ro. She's Cousin Ro. She's Big Sister Ro.
Yes.
She has been my mentor. And I really appreciate that she talks about her mentors, because it's about passing the torch.
Yes.
As President Biden just said 3 hours ago, it is time to pass on the torch to the next generation of leadership. And Rhodesia is that next generation.
There it is.
As much as I am. And someone that shows up, and that's who she is. And, you know, Rhodesia, it's so funny that you mentioned the insurrection. Her opponent and myself were the only two candidates that were in D.C. during the January 6th insurrection.
Okay.
What were
you doing, Mario, there? What was going on?
So I lived in D.C. as a resident, and I was living with my mama. And to find out that her opponent was 2 miles south of me on the Capitol, trying to question democracy is heartbreaking. To know that someone from the Central Valley, from our community, is going to question our values as a country is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, Rhodesia, since I've known her, we did a fellowship 15 years ago. I know she mentioned it about an hour ago, the Great Valley Leadership Fellowship that we did together to question and to learn policy issues of the Central Valley.
Yes.
Even since then, when Rhodesia came to DC, whether it was working for Josh Harder or other fellowship programs she was a part of, she was always questioning and understanding and learning and meeting with different constituencies, whether it was women, advocating for LGBTQ rights, which is something that I want to say right now. When you're an elected official, you fight for everybody. You represent everybody. And I'll tell you right now, Rhodesia has been the only person in this race that has sought out to represent everybody and always show up for every community that she will represent once she's elected to the California State Assembly, District 13. I can say that for her opponent. That's facts.
Woo,
she shows up and she's always fired up. And she always asks questions and she always says, how can I be an ally? How can I be a supporter? How can I be a better representative for you? Her opponent doesn't say that. Facts.
Thank you, sir.
Ooh.
I am very biased because I love Rhodesia, but I can always say, follow where the money goes, listen to where people show up, listen to what they say and how they advocate for every constituent in the district. And that's who Rhodesia has always been her entire life. It doesn't matter whether she's been running for office or not. As a community member, as a human being, she's always shown up. And that's who she's always been. So look at the facts, look at the record. And that's who Rhodesia Ransom has always been, which is why I'm so proud that she's running for assembly. And she will be our next California State Assembly woman.
Woo!
Thank you, Mario. Thank you.
Spoken like a true lion. Let's go.
Yeah, mic drop.
Community. Like Mario and I met on community. Like, how can we contribute to this place where people were burying information? Like, we had to go and find out what was happening, you know, and how we could engage in this community in a way that is thoughtful and informed. And even when he's been doing different, I know it's supposed to be my interview, but even when Mario was in college, he went and got his master's, he went to USC, he's always checking in on Stockton. He went to DC, working over there, always checking in. And I love how he went and built himself up, got informed on how policy works, and then came back to service community.
That's what
we need to do. We don't need to say, well, where have you been and why did you go educate yourself?
Exactly.
The fact is that we need homegrown people here to come back just as much as we need people who've come here to come together, because this is our community. There's just as many new folks is old folks. My
Yes.
community has doubled in size since I've moved there. So listen, we want to be here. We want this place to be something that we can pass on to the next generation.
Ashe.
And so I love working with this young man. I'm sorry to call you a young man. I love working with Mario since the beginning. So since he was a young student at UOP.
Woo,
Yes.
let's go. And now
and I
he's the
will
next
say,
years later. Come on.
Yes.
and I will say that Rhodesia, even when she went to DC, I mean, we're both very much the same. We're both bats. I mean, I was born in San Jose, San Francisco, like Rhodesia, but we made Central Valley our home, and we're always driven by values and to say you need to serve your community. Doesn't matter where you were born, you make your home, and that's who you are. And that's always what I respected about Rhodesia. Even when we were doing our fellowship 15 years ago, I remember she would take calls, and as a planning commissioner, oh, I got to do this, I got to do that. Because she was so intentional and thoughtful about serving her community. She was never, oh, I'm tired. Oh, I don't want to do this. She was always available to make the time to serve her community. And I took notes as a sponge, as a young kid listening to her and seeing her. And even in DC, when I was working for an LGBTQ organization, she came to DC and say, hey, how can I be a better ally? She would make meetings with LGBTQ elected officials. She would meet with women elected from Merge, California, LGBTQ organizations, Latino organizations, Black-based organizations. And she always made a time beyond her job. And that's something that I also want to point out, that Rhodesia and everybody else that's running for office, your job should not be based on public service. If your job is working for an elected official, that's great. It shows that you care and that you represent someone. But when you can go above and beyond and have a record of doing other things beyond your job, that says something. Don't make your job public service. Your job, your life is public service. And that's something that Rhodesia has always done. So when people question, oh, she's only worked for the congressman, no. She's done X, Y, and Z. She's done nonprofit work. She understands the community. She's been an ally. She's always shown up. So that's the one thing I want to highlight with Rhodesia. Is that she always shows up, period.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aww.
And you know what? I thank you for that personal testament. We've heard from on the ground grassroots relationship. We've heard from a civic engagement relationship, and we've heard from the youth. And I'm going to classify you with that lump of youth that has also paved a way to become a leader. And I think that's inspirational. When we talk about the prune tree, what is your soil? What is in your soil?
Yes.
Come on now.
Yes.
And we showed you 3-4 individuals that supports that ecosystem on what Rhodesia can bring. And that's what the Pruned Tree podcast is about. It's about that growth and the fruits. Listen, we showed you the fruits.
Yes.
Come on now. Don't listen. Y'all can pass the offering plate.
Yes.
Listen, we went to church this podcast.
Well, thank you.
We spoke so much truth.
Thank you.
To light. We spoke truth to power. And it's amazing individuals like Rhodesia and like Mario, like Mayor Nancy Young, that are going to push forth where we need to go in the future. And I want to thank you, Queen.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you so much for coming on here and willing to take the time to speak to our listeners. I am Rebel Ray. I want peace and blessings to you.
Yes.
I want you to know that I love you. Continue to register to vote.
Yes.
Ask those questions. Know who the representatives are. And if you want to reach out, put your information one more time, Rhodesia. If you want to reach out to Miss Ransom,
you can reach me at voteransom.com. Our website has a contact page. You can go there. We also have an office downtown, but if you reach out to us on the contact page, we'll definitely get back to you. If you want to see me at Instagram, it's at Rhodesia_Ransom on Instagram. And so I'm not really big on social media, but we're going to do our best to keep you all informed and let us know what you need from us, what questions you have from us. Reach out. I have no problem answering questions because I think that's the job of someone who wants to represent you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Very
RC,
good.
for having me
You're
here. This was amazing.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming to the Pruned Tree podcast. Follow us on the Pruned Tree podcast, Facebook and Instagram. We're on every major Spotify, YouTube that you can listen to podcasts on, and share this video.
Please.
Help people get informed about their representatives. Peace, love, and blessings. We out, y'all.